Guys, I absolutely adore this game. This fantasy-inspired, mesmerizing game that Digital Extreme has been cooking now for quite some time. Now, it's been a year since we first jumped into this game, and even back then, we were blown away with what we saw and what we got to play, especially since the game was still in its pre-alpha stage. I had such a good time with it, guys. I had to do a full breakdown of Soulframe right then and there. What has blown me away, though, was how much Soulframe has progressed over the past 7 months. And for those that are interested in giving Soulframe a try, down below is a link to Soulframe Preludes. Digital Extremes was kind enough to sponsor one of our most recent streams, and they've also done so for today's video. Much love to them. Today, guys, we're going to be running through an update, if you will, of where Soulframe is at this very moment. We'll give you a brief intro into the game if you haven't played it, just to get everybody up to speed. We'll showcase some of the progress that it's made over the last few months, including the recent additions from the just released Preludes 12 update. We'll try not to glaze Jennifer English too much. Yes, she's in the game. Dee has worked her into the world, and our character Allura is absolutely magical. Now, what is Soulframe? This is essentially Digital Extreme's fantasy action MMORPG. Very much like Warframe, but also different. It's not sci-fi, it's fantasy, its combat is a bit slower, and its world is completely open and absolutely massive. Matter of fact, for those of you that have actually played Warframe, which I'm sure many of you have, but a lot of folks have made comparisons between Soulframe and Duvari, and understandably so, considering the fantasy elements present in both. But Soulframe is its own game. It's its own identity, and you'll notice this when you first play it, guys. Yes, it has a lot of similarities with some of the core things that made Warframe such a good game, but it's its own identity. From the magical abilities to the melee combat itself, the fact that the world is also less instance and essentially just features this giant open world to explore. Guys, just look at the scale of this pre-alpha stage map. And let me just say, this is more than quadrupled in size over the last few months. The themes here are very much nature and animal inspired. There's a heavy focus on exploration and discovering the history of this world. Now, instead of this game having frames, it actually has something called Pacts, which are very similar to frames, but they're essentially these different arms that you can swap out that will give you access to unique abilities and skill trees. And this greatly alters the way you play the game. And you can further customize by changing up your armor, your weapons, upgrading those weapons with skills. And I'm sure some of this to my Warframe players looks very familiar, and that's because it is similar in terms of gameplay loop. You go out, you do quests, you explore, you find crafting recipes and resources, then you come back to your hub, you craft those new pieces, you craft weapons, packs, to then use and level up to make them even stronger. And just like Warframe, Soulframe is co-op. It is an MMO, and it will be completely free to play. And that's one thing I really love about these, that when they say, hey, this game is free to play, it is truly free to play. But currently right now, guys, there is a ton of content to play, and each Prelude release expands upon that content. It adds more new things to do, new systems to interact with, and brand new mechanics. There's a storyline to follow as you're introduced to the world, and its introduction of characters, which you bring back to your hub to build up. Which, can I just say, is one of the most satisfying things I've ever experienced in a game. At any moment, you can snap and boom, you are in your own personal hub, loaded down with the NPCs that you've acquired via quests. Now, the open world is full of enemies, full of ruins, tons of towns, quests, puzzles, collectibles, little musical mini games, encampments, hidden chests, and my favorite, world bosses. Now, for my players that are really trying to dive deeper into quote-unquote in-game, there's 25 dungeons to find, and every time you explore these, they're different every time you enter, thanks to the game's procedural tile system. And that's one thing to note about Soulframe. Even the instance locations feel much more connected to the world, as they all fit the same architecture and location type of where you find them, at least so far. And when you leave, you're immediately spit right back out into the open world to continue exploring. No load screens, no menus, nothing that breaks that immersion. If there's one thing that I feel like games are really missing, especially today, is the ability to just stumble upon things while out in the open world. We have a generation of games that's constantly pushing us into one menu after another, and it's a breath of fresh air here to experience what Dee is cooking here with Soulframe, where yes, around that corner could be the entry point to a dungeon or potentially a raid in the future. Now, if you've already played Soulframe, you're probably just wondering, okay, Cross, what has changed so far? I played a few months ago. Where are we at now? Well, there's been a lot of new additions and changes to Soulframe since we last covered it. Now, I do want to mention that this game is still unfinished, but But man, DE is just constantly adding more and more stuff, which continues to scale the game upwards. And at some point, we just need to look into Digital Extremes and figure out how the hell they are able to pump out these level of updates between two full-blown games, that being Soulframe and Warframe, at the same time, and still remaining free to play. Now, the first major one of the updates, though, that hits Soulframe is what really ties into the onboarding experience. Preludes 12 revamped the opening of the game entirely so that it's much more understandable, and it explains a lot more of the game's systems while you progress through the beginning. It introduces you to the Fog of War system, how to go about clearing it, and probably most importantly, you can now test out the starting packs and weapons before choosing which one you would like to start with. And it is absolutely vital for a game to have a good onboarding experience, and I'm happy to see that Soulframe is really trying to nail theirs. Now, in terms of the additions to packs or the game's classes, I think when we last played, there were a total of 7 packs that existed. Now there is 11 in total. Some you obtain from certain quest lines, and then some are tied to factions. And each of them offer up different playstyles with their own unique abilities, perks, and skill trees, and they can be leveled to rank 30. So you've got a lot of progression with these alone. And in terms of potency, hot damn does it scale when you level it up. One of the coolest packs that I just recently unlocked, though, is the Bromius Pact. Fellas, you've got abilities here that literally turn you into a bear. Or at least it gives me an ability that makes me look like a bear for just a moment. This is a really cool new pact. I don't know how long it's been available, but it wasn't in the game when I first played. And this is just one example how packs can really change your playstyle. Speaking of playstyles, we gotta talk about the weapons. There are 8 different weapon types, from bows to staffs to the newly added great swords, with multiple types of each that you can find and craft, all with different stats and dope visuals, and some that have some pretty steep requirements just to be able to equip, but they reward you greatly if you meet those prerequisites. Now, different combinations can result in unique builds, and the depth only grows from there. They've since added sidearms, allowing you to equip a second weapon alongside your primary. Totems came next in Preludes 11, allowing you to charm the beasts of the open world to gain passive boons for your weapons, and then came runes, an equipable and powerful active ability that depends on your weapon type and can be earned by defeating named sub-bosses in the world. Now, you can save up to 4 loadouts now, so you can easily swap between different builds. And they even added transmog in the form of bestitching. This system allows you to change the appearance of your armor while keeping its stats, so you can now play Fashion Frame in Soulframe. Now, one of the biggest criticisms Soulframe has had from its community has been its difficulty, or a lack thereof. So in response, alongside Prelude 12, DE released a player-triggered challenge called the Koga. Here you'll have to craft a special mushroom brewed elixir to access this new challenge, and consuming it will activate basically hard mode out in the open world. It turns the sky red, it gives you debuffs, and it skyrockets the enemy levels up to 30 and above. And as you defeat enemies, they'll continuously grow even stronger. Now, this also powers up world bosses, allowing you to obtain unique drops from when they're defeated. And once the Koga begins, the only way to end it is if you die, or you flat out run away from a fight, which ends the challenge due to your cowardice. Now, you can join up with your friends to try to tackle this challenge as a team, and I would recommend that. But I think this is such an interesting thing that DE is at it, and I'm doing everything I can to get to the point where I can activate this for myself, but I'm gonna need a squad to get that hot carry, so hit your man up. Overall, guys, Soulframe truly is such a unique game. Don't get me wrong, like, I love sci-fi, I love shooters, but I think deep down, I get truly lost in fantasy worlds, because that's what they are, fantasy. And Soulframe just continues to grow more and more. I cannot recommend this game enough, guys. Yes, it will be free to play. Currently, right now, you'll have to become a founder to get instant access to the game, and you'll get access to specific packs depending on your choice of founder edition. But what I really love about this is that if you are a founder, you're able to give out a bunch of codes to your friends, which really is the best way to play this game. Sure, you can play it completely solo, but playing with the squad truly is the DE experience. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.